Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Environmental Peacebuilding Association's event Spotlight, in which we are exploring people and stories behind environmental peacebuilding. And today, on behalf of the association, I couldn't be happier to welcome and host Carl Bruch, founding president of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association and director of international program at the Environmental Law Institute. Carl has been a leading figure in connecting environmental governance, environmental law, conflict resolution, and peace building for decades, and his work has inspired many of us in the field today. Carl, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you so much. So I would like to ask my first question to you. Could you please tell us about your current job and what you are doing nowadays?
So I direct international programs at the Environmental Law Institute based in Washington, D.C. I also serve as the executive director of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association and have a variety of ongoing projects, some of them related to evaluation of inclusion of marginalized groups in global environment fund facility. I still need that caffeine, but in Jeff programming and working to support Ukraine on environmental impact assessment and helping colleagues to develop their programming around environmental defenders, water tenure, and other areas.
Thank you so much. That's fascinating. There are many diverse projects. So I would like to ask you, how did you choose your career path? What are the milestones, or how your career path chose you?
I would say that it was very much of an organic process. It's something that I learned by doing. Part of the challenge is that many things interest me. And so my undergraduate was physics, math, and anthropology. I did a master's in physics, worked for a year on the Yucca Mountain Project, doing performance assessment for high-level civilian radioactive waste, went off to law school, and I really wanted to do international environmental law. I didn't know if that was a job option or how that would work. I graduated in 1996 and got a fellowship at a group called ELAW, Environmental Law Alliance Worldwide, which was using this new thing called the internet to connect environmental lawyers and scientists around the world. It was really cool, but it was very much helping them with their litigation and campaigns. So there were a lot of quick turnaround, small projects. And in about 11 months, I worked on over 200 projects. So you never had a chance to step back and be strategic. It was always putting out all these little fires. And so when the opportunity to work at ELI came up, I jumped at it because I really wanted to work more at the strategic level. And fundamentally, the whole reason I went to law school was to shape how people related to the world around them. I know that's incredibly vague, incredibly general, but it still is true. And I think that this has, kind of this desire yes, I'm very interested in environment. I'm also interested in the social aspects and in the legal and justice aspects. And so those have kind of driven me. And at first I worked on a lot of different environmental law projects, everything from environmental management systems in Mexico to the forestry law in Uganda to air pollution in South Africa. And it was interesting to be general. Worked across Africa, Latin America, Central and Eastern Europe, a little bit of Asia. And then I went to UNEP for a sabbatical. And I had the opportunity to work on something big that had a lot of constituent elements. That was on compliance with enforcement of multilateral environmental agreements. And it wound up being almost 2.5 years, and it was an amazing experience. In part because I had a focus. It was there were boundaries, and the difficulty in my previous work was that whenever I started feeling comfortable with the material, the project was done, and I moved on to a new thing, and I learned new partners, new subjects, and it was a great way to start out. And then UNEP really marked this pivot point for me. And I came back with an idea about taking stock of what we've learned about managing natural resources after conflict. And it's the sort of work that ELI was doing a lot of support to countries and communities and NGOs in environmental law in their countries. But we were realizing that countries like Afghanistan and Liberia and others, they were fundamentally different than a lot of the other countries we were working in. But there was no real understanding of what that meant in terms of the sort of guidance that we should be giving or that others should be giving. And that led to a series of 6 books on post-conflict natural resource management that was led by ELI, the UN Environment Program, McGill University, and the University of Tokyo. That led to a website, the Environmental Peacebuilding Knowledge Platform, the Environmental Peacebuilding Community of Practice. And over time, that led to the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. And kind of looking back on it, it seems very natural. When you're living it, it was, it's like, you're constantly kind of wondering what's around the corner. And I think that one of the things that I learned in this was that I really learned to trust my instincts. This something was really interesting. It may not have fit the other things that I was doing, but it's really interesting. And then something else was really interesting, and something else was really interesting. And then you step back and go, oh, these things all tie together in ways that I hadn't seen in the moment. And so I think that it's fascinating to kind of reflect on this, because at the time it didn't always seem obvious. You didn't always know where we were going. And I think that there is kind of a shift that's happening right now globally, but that's kind of the arc and how I got to where I am.
Mm-hmm. I mean that's fascinating, and it also seems like you are balancing a lot. And I would like to also ask you, like, you are working on such a complex topic, so how you are prioritizing with such complex topics, like when you are balancing a lot of areas?
That's a really good question. I would say that that's one of the challenges. Part of it is that I do find that I get there eventually. And so, I am trying to be careful about what I commit to, but if I commit to something, I do try to finish it. And I try to make sure that it's at the level of quality that I want and that is expected. The prioritization sometimes boils down to who's yelling the loudest at you. I find that in my work, I'm pretty good at responding to the little things, just keep as many things moving, have as few choke points as possible. And then I try to prioritize what I need to do for the things that require more attention. There is a bit of tension sometimes between some of the things that I'm doing that are funded projects and I need to get them done if I want to keep a job. And then there are other things that I really value that aren't funded, but I still really want to do them because I believe in the impact.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, that sounds amazing. And as someone who has a chance to work with you, like, I know, like, your time management as an outsider seems easy, but I'm wondering, like, what are the challenges, because you have very rich career spanning and still going on.
Could you elaborate on that question a little?
Yeah. So while you are doing this many works and like continue your career, so I'm wondering, like, what are the main challenges you're facing? You already touch upon some, but
No. I think the biggest one is money. That fundamentally my day job is ELI.
Mhm.
And that requires grants and contracts. That means coming up with good ideas, finding partners, finding funders that want to support that. Sometimes the ideas are coming from the partners, but it's, the point is you have to fundraise. You have to fundraise enough. And it's not just for you, it's also for your team. And that gets challenging sometimes, when there's an economic downturn, a change of administrations, whatever it is. But I mean, so far, I'm happy to say we keep, every day we show up, every day things happen, and we just keep doing it. The second major challenge for me is time. That there's so many interesting things to do. And it becomes a question of how to prioritize. And there's a question of how to prioritize among the different projects. But then there's also, how do you balance work and home? How do you balance other things like yourself? And I mean, it was very important to me when I remember shortly before my daughter was born, I was thinking about what sort of, how this was going to change my life. And, I love history. I love stories. And I've heard so many stories of people who let their work life mess up their family life, especially children. And I did not want that to happen. And so, I have been trying for years to have balance in my life, and it never seemed to work. The only thing that was balanced was I didn't do anything well enough. And so at that time, I decided that I needed a different approach. And I needed to prioritize. And I was going to prioritize family, make sure that I was there for them. And then I would prioritize work. And then, well, I never quite got past number 2. And my daughter went off to college. I find myself with a little more time. I'm trying to spend a little more time for myself, trying to be a little more active, trying to do more photography. But, I think I'm very happy with the prioritization. There's still always more that you can do, but I'm also incredibly grateful for what I have been able to do and what I am doing. And so, I would say another thing is just, with all the frustrations, celebrate your victories. It's like, and so, there are things that I don't get to do that I would like to do, but I don't actually regret them because I feel very good that I have chosen the most important things that I want to do and made sure that I did them and I did them well.
Thank you so much. Like in a world that the career is so important, but all of them is human made, and you are talking about the human personal life too. And as you mentioned in the last part, the grateful moments, I would like to ask you, what were the most rewarding moments that you felt like it's worth it?
There are kind of the traditional moments, if you will. When you finally get the MOOC out the door, when you finally, and it's good and it's good, or the books. But I feel like there are certain moments, and usually the ones that stand out in my mind are at the end of the first conference and at the end of the third conference. When we see all the people that it's not just me, it's collectively the association has brought together in the community that we're building. And those are kind of emblematic. It's not just, oh, we did another conference and it's good. It's more the bigger picture. And I was reflecting, this was about a year ago, about the fact that I feel like I have another 10, 15 years at this pace. And then I kind of slow down. But, thinking about what I want to do. And I was thinking about, well, what am I most proud of? Where do I feel like I had the most impact? And, there are a lot of things that I've done that I'm very proud of, but that none of the individual things was what I was most proud of. It's kind of collectively how the books and the website and the community of practice and the association and the conferences and the journal, how all of those are kind of collectively leading to this growth of a field and growth of a community. It's not any one thing. And with that, I also realized that it's a lot of the small things that I do, talking to people about, careers, education, how to navigate problems, all those small things really add up. And I remember kind of conversely, many years ago, I got through a day, this was when we were working on the books. And, there was a lot to do. And I realized at the end of the day that I hadn't done a single thing. That I'd been in meetings and calls, and I hadn't edited a single page. I hadn't written a single paragraph. And so I started asking myself, well, what should I have, what should I have gotten rid of? What meeting should I not have done? And I realized that every single one of those meetings was necessary. And I started viewing these as transaction costs, but they're transactional in the sense that you're building something. And if you don't do this meeting, you don't do that call, things aren't going to move forward. And so it doesn't put words on a page, but it keeps things moving. And you build things through all of these discussions and consultations and a lot of these things that people just view as distractions. They're central to the mission.
Mhm. Thank you so much again. So once a wise person told me that his name was Bruch, that we generally tend to measure what's measurable, but we need to also focus on what is meaningful. And there are many emerging professionals and students who would like to take more active part, and they are very passionate about environmental peace building. So I would like to ask your advice or recommendations for those who are trying to enter and grow in this field.
So I think there are a few things that I would suggest. The first is figure out what you love, what's really important to you. And it's not just in the field, it's also family or where you need to live or whatever it is. What's really important to you? That becomes your North Star. Many people focus on, this is where I am, this is the experience I have, what's my next step? And I think that's not the best way of thinking about it. The question is, what do you want your destination to be? And then you say, okay, what are my qualifications? Which is, where am I? Where have I been? But start with, where do you want to go? And then you start evaluating your options a little differently. And things that might seem a little less obvious become more clear. And I had this realization when I was going from being a physicist to wanting to do law. And I wanted to change how people relate to the world around them. And I didn't feel like the physics studies, as interesting as it was, as rewarding as it was, that wasn't going to get me there. And so I needed to go to law school. I needed to get experience in the practice of law, the application of law. And so I think the first thing is to figure out where you're going, both professionally and personally. The second is work your tail off, which is, it's like anything that is interesting, there are a lot of other people who want it. If you're doing something you love, not just because it's going to help the world, but it's because this is how you want to have an impact. This is your meaning. You will be a lot more effective at it. Third is kind of the countervailing aspect to work your tail off, and that's pace yourself. That people, especially young people, they dive in, they do too much, and then they say enough, and they walk away. You need to figure out how to pace yourself and to keep coming back. Don't burn out. And I think that the other thing that I would say is sometimes you don't get exactly what you want in terms of the job, but it gets you on the path.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what your job or what your current opportunities give you, and then think about what you can do outside that job to build your portfolio. It might be learning other languages. It might be doing writing on the side. It might be kind of spending time in particular places. But think about how you can supplement your current day job with things that help you get on the path that you want to be on.
Mm-hmm. And that's wonderful. Thank you so much. So we are getting close to the end of the interview. So I would like to ask you to close on a fun note. So I would like to ask you that if environmental peace building were a movie genre or a specific movie, what would it be and why?
I think for me, the closest movie would be It's a Wonderful Life, with Jimmy Stewart. And it's it can be incredibly challenging. There can be frustrating days. But fundamentally, the key is you do what matters to you. You make the world a better place. You try to make the world a better place. There are big things, but there are also a lot of small things that you do. And you don't always see the impacts. You don't always see what's meaningful. Mm-hmm. But it is profoundly meaningful. And it's about community. It's about family. And it also, there's a touch of magic in the world. You don't always understand how everything works, but it's amazing how often when you just keep doing good stuff and helping people, things work out.
I mean, that's a great analogy. Thank you. But he couldn't travel though, Carl.
We don't know what happened at the end of the movie. I mean, after the end.
Yeah. I mean, on behalf of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, it was an honor to host you today. Thank you so much for all your insights and experience and expertise you shared with us.
Thank you for the opportunity, Buket.